Okay, and as the disease progresses, what happens? Times of shut-off happen more frequently. The dial moves more often. Completely unannounced. You don't know when the dial's going to move. The range becomes less. You don't quite get up to 10. You don't quite get up to 8. You don't quite get up to 6. However, it's been some of my favorite days working with people with dementia are when I walk into their room, checking them during a midnight shift, and it's someone who's getting close to end-of-life care, and that dials up to 10. I've heard people call it a window, but it's absolutely fantastic. You feel like you've got that person back wholeheartedly for a few moments or up to an hour, and all you can do is enjoy that time. Energy levels drop quicker, stay down longer. Times of being disoriented become more frequent. It's harder to do things in sequence. Easier to lose track of time. Recalling names, recalling faces becomes harder. Emotions. Emotions intensify. Anger, grief, anxiety, loneliness, depression. All emotions seem to intensify. Belongings are misplaced more often. But having empathy, really being able to understand someone's difficulties and their feelings, that's what makes us good caregivers. Just a little side point, I wasn't going to mention this, but I had an Aunt Lois who was in the caregiving field for years and years, worked up the months, and even after she retired, she worked in homes with the disabled. And when I first went into dementia care, she said, "Best advice I can give you, Yvonne, is don't lose your sense of humor." Now I know why. Everything else will get lost. I have found dentures inside a sock, wadded up, top drawer, pulled glasses out of the boots that are, but a really important question for us to ask ourselves as caregivers is, what is our main goal? And our main goal, it should sound something like, I want to make sure the person I'm caring for feels calm, content, secure, well cared for, respected. I want to be encouraging. I want to offer praise. I want to make sure they don't feel inadequate, of course. I want to create an atmosphere of merriment, sprinkle the day with moments of joy. Really hard thing to do is balance activities and times of rest throughout the day. I hear great praises about Bortz and their activities over there. We want to assist as much as possible, but yet keep them as involved with their self-care as possible. You know what I believe? I believe the absolute best gift that we can give the person we're caring for is to accept them just the way they are, to treat them the same on their good day and their bad day. I believe the very most important goal for us to have as caregivers is to develop a trusting relationship. If you know I really like you and I like spending time with you, everything gets easier. What if my main goal is to keep Joe clean? Well, after Joe's had a couple Oreo cookies that he's been dipping in milk, I might just walk up to Joe and get him clean. But if my main goal is to develop a personal relationship, I'm going to come up to Joe from the front. I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to make sure my washcloth is nice and warm. I'm going to give Joe the opportunity to wash his own face first. But if Joe's turned down, I'm going to take his hand in that warm washcloth, and I'm going to wash his fingers, and I'm going to say something like, "Joe, These hands have done so much work through the years. You've helped so many people. Your son Bill often tells me how proud he is of you. Why? Let him focus them on what their life accomplishments are. What if my main goal is to keep Mabel looking nice? I might insist that Mabel wears her brand new bathrobe when she's so much more secure and comfortable in her old raggedy terry cloth bathrobe. And what if my main goal is to get Joe dressed? Would I resort to rushing Joe? It's just going to make him anxious and panicky. What if my main goal is to help Joe feel content and respected? What am I going to do when Joe clears his throat and spits it on the floor? I'm going to get a rag and clean it up. I'm not going to hold Joe responsible for his behavior. I'm not going to ask him why he did what he just did. Why? Just like Nancy when she was outside in the pitch black of night, Joe doesn't know why. You know, I don't want to get too sad here, but one point I wanted to make is rather than always referring to the person with dementia as the person with dementia, if I'm talking about a male, I'll just call him Joe. And if I'm talking about a female, I'll just call her Mabel. But Joe and Mabel are going to have abilities that will diminish, definitely decline. Those abilities would include learning, thinking, reasoning, judgment, understanding cause and effect, the ability to recall, memory, problem solving, language, communicating. But there's good news. There is a list of abilities that for the most part, Joe and Mabel will retain. They will always be able to read my facial expression, my mannerism, my body language, my hand gestures, and they will always be able to express their own thoughts and feelings by using facial expressions, mannerisms, body language, voice tones, hand gestures. And they can always accurately detect if someone who is caring for them is genuine and caring. Before we get into some of the practical tips and techniques that tap into these retained abilities, I kind of want to reiterate some of the points that Julie was bringing up earlier. Number one, caregiving is a job. It requires so much patience, compassion, forgiveness, understanding. Please, caregivers, show yourselves as much patience, compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. There's never been a caregiver that gets it right hour after hour, day after day, month after month. Errors will be made, and the simplest solution is usually just to say, I'm sorry. Sometimes the people that we're caring for can embarrass us. They can say and do very hurtful things, sometimes repeatedly. Sometimes we've dealt with it our whole lives. And we can center ourselves. We can blame it on the disease, their pain level, the depression, what they're going through, what they've been through. We can remind ourselves what our main goals are. But the number one thing that should never leave your priority list is to take a break.